Thank you. You mean a clicker? Thanks a lot, and I'm very happy to be speaking to you this morning. Is there a clicker somewhere?
Yes.
Oh, you're bringing it, okay. In today's talk, I'm going to talk to you about the global numbers. That's one of my specialities, and also how you could use these numbers for your daily work, for your company, or if you're a policymaker, if you want to work in making better policies and decisions. Oh, on there. All right. As mentioned, I work for Unitar. We're part of the Sustainable Cycles team in Bonn, in Germany. We do, in our team, we quantify the problem. How much e-waste is out there at the national, regional, and the global level. We also do this through guidelines, so each country is making these numbers with the exact same methodology so that they can be compared with each other. And we also participate in several research projects in order to understand how we could improve the situation of e-waste management, so, such as with the recycling of critical raw materials and photovoltaic panels, which are just two research projects that we have just started with. We also do capacity building and training. We have a team of 15 people. And so we also know a lot about the subject ourselves, which we can turn into training for you and for others. And we also provide this knowledge into partnerships. We've been like a co-founder of the Solving the E-Waste problem. We are also converting this knowledge for decision makers, such as the European Commission, for the WE Directive, for the UN E-Waste Coalition, and the Global E-Waste Statistics Partnership. So what I'm going to talk about today is the key data on e-waste and in Africa, and also some examples how you could use that in a stepwise approach in order to improve the situation. We all have heard also yesterday that the world has generated a record high amount of e-waste of 62 billion kilograms in 2022. This equals to 7.8 a kilogram per inhabitant. And the sad finding is that only 22.3% of this e-waste has been documented to be formally collected and recycled. So it's unfortunately a very sad story. And it's even, but it also has, and I'll talk about it later, a positive element. First, starting with the facts. Well, the amount of e-waste is rapidly growing, from 34 billion kilograms about a decade ago to 62 now, and it's projected to grow to 82 billion kilograms. At the same time, the formal recycling of e-waste has also grown. So this is very positive. So we are actually doing more. It has grown from 8 up to 13.8 billion kilograms. However, the speed at which the e-waste mountain is growing is growing unfortunately faster than the amount of the recycling. So I think we have to do better. If you want to understand more about the main data about Africa, this has been summarized in the Global E-Waste Monitor in this infographic. I'm not going to go over it entirely. I just want to show you if you're interested in these numbers, please read this, and you can find anything you would like to know about your country, how it relates to the other countries, if a country has a legislation or not. You can find it in the monitor. Although I would like to highlight a couple of numbers about Africa, and zooming into West and East Africa, which they have asked me to do. E-waste is basically any device which has been discarded, which runs on a battery or a plug. I think we all know that. And we differentiate it into 7 types of e-waste. In Africa, the largest type of e-waste is small equipment. It equals to 383 kilotons of e-waste has been generated in East and West Africa. The second largest is temperature exchange goods. That's basically fridges, air conditioners. And you can also read the other numbers on the screen here. What really does notify me is that the category lamps is quite big in relation to other countries. It's because lamps are quite affordable, and it improves your quality of life, directly. But they also contain mercury if you have some older lamps. So they also need special attention. Another aspect which was also discussed yesterday is the transboundary movement of electronic waste. In the entire continent of Africa, receives approximately 500 million kilograms of imports into the country. Only 19 of those are controlled, so compliant with the Basel Convention. The vast majority is uncontrolled. It's basically stuffed in containers like that or in vans, mostly functioning goods that actually work, which can be sold on the national market. However, also, part of this is not functioning, and I'll talk about it in the next slide. And it's one of the global hotspots. If you look at all the countries in the world, Africa is receiving a lot of these goods, and depending per region, it could be even more than what they produce themselves on an annual basis. If you want to understand more, you need to do more research, of course. We have done 2 projects in order to understand this a bit better. These are person in the port projects. So that's basically you place 1 or 2 persons in a port, kind of undercover, opening up containers, and they are testing these devices which are being imported into the country. Is it working? Yes or not? What type of products are being shipped into that particular port? We have done that in Nigeria and in Tanzania. Maybe some highlights from those studies is that in Nigeria, 70% of second-hand goods were imported in second-hand cars. So basically, a van or a car, there's some void space. They just also place a microwave, a monitor, or a laptop inside of it, and only 30% in containers. And out of the functionality tests which we have done, 70% were functioning, but 30% are not functioning. So they are electronic waste. So that is illegal. And if a shipment contains both, then it's by default it's waste shipment. In Tanzania, we had less budget, so we could only test 6,000 units during a period of 20 days in the port of Dar es Salaam, so it must have been very close to here. Most of it came from Germany and also like 1,000 items from Zanzibar. It was impossible to test the goods from Germany. It was like big ships, and they didn't let us in and to functionality test this. So we don't know. However, from the 900 items coming from Zanzibar in small ships, 50% were functioning and 50% were not functioning, were e-waste. And I think the ones that live here, they may know that these shipments, like from Zanzibar, are coming from somewhere else. So there's another boat going to Zanzibar, offloading, and then shipping it in smaller vessels into the port of Dar es Salaam. So this is not actually waste or second-hand goods from Zanzibar. It's coming from somewhere else, which we couldn't track. So this is an issue for this country as well, and it may be growing, may not be. we don't know the time series yet. I was also asked to have it a bit more, interactive. So I'd like to know if there's any questions that you may have so far on what I have presented, and I'm happy to take any questions right now.
Thank you. My concern is about Zanzibar. You said this 900 tons from Zanzibar.
Items.
Yes. I need more clarification on that because Zanzibar they need to produce all the e-wastes. So let us know exactly the point, the country of origin of that product you are saying. Thank you.
I don't know the numbers myself, right now, but I'll get back to the researchers that were in the port, doing this. And if you leave your cards, we can follow up on that if you're interested. Okay? That'd be.
Ok, merci à vous.
Oh. I don't have a.
Ok, donc merci à vous pour cette première partie de la présentation. Moi, je voulais demander, est-ce que dans le cadre de vos activités, de vos missions au niveau de l'UNITA, est-ce que vous avez défini des programmes de formation en direction des pays, principalement des pays africains, pour les problématiques de gestion des déchets électriques?
No, no, I can't hear anything.
Oh, it's the wrong channel. It's the wrong channel. That's why I
Yeah,
have to
but
put it for you. Don't end the volume.
Could you say it again?
Voilà. Donc je disais tantôt, est-ce qu'au niveau de l'UNITA, vous avez défini des programmes de formation en direction des pays, principalement des pays africains, qui sont confrontés à ces problématiques-là? Formation du secteur privé, formation du secteur informel, mais également formation des membres de l'administration qui sont dans la gestion environnementale et sociale. Merci.
Thanks a lot for your question. Yes, we have trained the African continent on various subjects, on the production of statistics, on the sound management of e-waste through e-waste academies designed for e-waste managers and e-waste students. So we have done it, and depending per country, we haven't covered yet all countries yet, but that's one of our ambitions also to go beyond to the trainings that we have done so far. Yeah. So if you're interested, please follow up and then see what we can do. Any other questions, or otherwise I just continue, and there will be more. Okay, a final question, and then we continue.
Okay, my question or my concern is that when you were doing your projection, I know that we're getting illegal e-waste basically from Germany, which are coming not through a different form, like they are inserted inside vehicles and all that. What are we doing to prevent that?
What can you do that's a very good question. I think there is a demand for these second-hand goods because we all need we all want to use a mobile phone, a refrigerator, and these things. So I think better inspection would be preferred. However, also collection and setup of systems to collect e-waste in these countries and send them to formalized recyclers is very important. This flow, it will not stop. So I think what I've seen from these companies here who are actually collecting e-waste and making sure that's being safely disposed of is very good. And I think this is one of the things we should do. And of course, better legislate the issue and enforce the legislation if you have it enacted, which all requires capacity.
I see that there are other hands. May we keep them so we can move on to the presentation and we'll come back to that? Is that?
In the second part, while I've just shown you some key data on the global e-waste, you may have seen them before, may not, so that we are all at the same page. In the second part, I'll go through a couple of steps and also illustrate with examples of what you could do to improve the management of e-waste. I have defined 7 steps. It could have been a bit less or a bit more, and I think all of these steps are important. I also see them kind of as a radar. If one of them is, or 1 or 2 of them are missing, you may not to get a functioning system. You need to do all of these steps if you want to improve the situation. The first step is to understand how big is your problem, how much is it going to be, what are the facts that you can build this on. The second step is to understand who are your stakeholders. Who do I need to involve in order to improve the situation? It's not like one single entity, it's multiple stakeholders which are needed. Step 3 is to go through with the data and the stakeholders on the impact which you would like to achieve in your particular country, which is the basis to put in a legal framework for e-waste management, specifically for e-waste management. It's not sufficient to govern this with hazardous waste. It's much better to have a framework for e-waste management, and then this also kind of coincides together to set up collection points and recycling infrastructure to raise the awareness with the public, and also to build capacity with e-waste managers and collectors and the legislators, and then also connect the systems that you have in your country to the international scene. E-waste management is not something that you do only in your country, it's a global market. So if you, well, I'm a data man, so I'll start maybe to bore you a little bit with how you can make what you need to do in order to make your statistics right. You need to understand the entire life cycle of the products. So we're starting with the production and the trade. How much is being imported, how much is being exported, how much is being produced per year, per country. Of that, how much of that is being placed on the market? How many laptops are being sold? And you need to have a time series of that in order to understand these developments. These laptops, we are using them afterwards. And we need to know the lifespans of these products until from when we buy them until we dispose them of, when they become e-waste. E-waste generated. So basically, it's a function that we are using of all the products which has been sold, multiplied with their lifespans, and then we can calculate how much e-waste is out there. This is a very important number. So the numbers which I've shown to you, so the 62 billion kilograms is basically how much e-waste is being generated, has been calculated with this formula for any device that we have covered, which runs on a battery or a plug. And then we want to understand how is this being collected. Is it ending up in formal places? That's the number of the 22.3%, or is it ending up in the residual waste and handed over to other type of recyclers or the informal sector? Well, you need to also map these flows in order to understand what's happening in your country. One final word about which products do we need to capture. We've designed a system based on 54 different products. So a laptop is one product, a washing machine is a product, an air conditioner is a product. They all have like a similar function and comparable average weight per unit, which is really handy if you want to make numbers and statistics on this. They have comparable lifespans per product, so each product has a different lifespan. And more importantly, we can also trace certain materials, certain hazardous materials. We all know that e-waste contains hazardous substances such as mercury or flame retardants, but also valuable materials such as gold and palladium and others. And we have a system in place where we have the material composition of each of those 54 products in a detailed manner in our databases. And with that, you can actually do a lot of work, and you can actually also estimate, very in a high level of detail, what kind of impact this may have for your country. Well, we are publishing our data in a series of publications using this methodology. I'm not going to go into detail of them, but if you're interested in that, have a look. There's also various monitors out specifically on Africa, on the national situation, and the global one also covers data and insights on Africa. Any questions on the how to measure this and why it's important to measure? If not, then I have a few more rounds of one question. Okay, then I'll take that one and then I'll continue afterwards.
D'accord. Au fait, ce que j'aimerais savoir, c'est si un pays n'a pas un cadre législatif, comment faire sur quoi on peut se baser pour la catégorisation des déchets d'équipements électriques et électroniques? Parce que pour la plupart du temps, au Sénégal, on n'a pas un cadre législatif qui nous permettrait de gérer ces déchets d'équipements électriques et électroniques. Mais par contre, on a une société qui gère ça, qui est l'ADIE. Mais l'ADIE, ce sont les personnes à mobilité réduite qui gèrent ces déchets d'équipements électriques et électroniques. Mais dans ce cadre, eux, ils gèrent le démantèlement moderne. Parce que ce sont des gens qui ont été formés sur la base de la gestion de ces déchets d'équipements électriques et électroniques. On a aussi un autre problème, parce que pour la plupart du temps, ces déchets nous viennent des pays du Nord. Mais comment ces déchets nous viennent des pays du Nord? Pour la plupart du temps, ce sont en termes de dons qu'on nous donne ça. En général, dans le cadre des ordinateurs, ils nous disent, les gens préfèrent dire leurs besoins. Par rapport à ces ordinateurs, on a besoin de tel ordinateur, tel ordinateur, tel ordinateur pour nos élèves qui étudient, sachant que c'est un pays qui n'est pas un tout petit peu développé. Donc, du coup, on nous donne les ordinateurs en fin de vie. Peut-être que ces ordinateurs vont rester jusqu'à 4 mois, ou 5 mois, et ça se transforme en e-déchets. Et maintenant, comment faire pour résoudre cette problématique? C'est vrai qu'on a un besoin criard d'intéresser ces élèves qui sont au Sénégal sur les pratiques, sur la manipulation de l'ordinateur, tout cela. Mais est-ce aussi on a vraiment besoin de ces ordinateurs en fin de vie qui ne font qu'augmenter nos déchets? Merci beaucoup.
Thanks a lot, and also to what to tell what's happening in Senegal. And I think these donations, they probably. You have a question too?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to kind of add up to that question.
Yeah, please go on.
Yeah. So Özgür Çalıcıoğlu from Ghana team in HPMP, World Bank. On top of that, very fair point, it's basically that some of the items that come in maybe just work for briefly and then become waste. So on that regard, I think that the training program was also a fair question in terms of maybe refurbishing, etc., so that it won't become a waste. Maybe that's one thing to think about. But I also was wondering on the statistics that you were showing as to like 50% is defunct, etc. I wonder how much of that could be also taught or some capacity could be built so that there will be a better rate of rejection of the items that they come, and then the eco levies could be leveraged on that. Once the item is there and it's clearly not working, is there a way to make sure that it's captured better in the statistics and immediately some more fee or tax or some other economic measure, financial measure could be taken at the ports?
Thank you. I will tackle both of them, and then I come to you. Is it? I think with the transboundary movement, it starts with the exporter. There is a port or there is a shipment happening from most likely a rich country. I think all of these exports, they have to be accompanied with a certificate of compliance that it actually does function. It does contain a plug and it actually does work. I think that's the minimum. Secondly, especially if it comes from the European Union, well, the producers have already paid a fee, a compliance fee, to comply with the WEEE directive. This compliance fee, which the producers have paid, is to ensure that these laptops are being collected and recycled in a proper manner. These laptops are not collected and are not recycled in a proper manner in Europe. They are exported elsewhere, to Africa, for instance. But money has been paid for that. I think we have to start thinking about, could we also shift a part of that money to make sure that this waste is being collected and make sure that this is being, safely, turned into secondary raw materials. And I think this is also one of the obligations of the producers, that they actually also consider this. And the same applies for the donations. If you're donating your laptop to a country for students, it's a good thing. However, it should not only be the laptop. It should also come with some sort of mechanism that once these laptops are not functioning, they may be repaired, or skills is being developed with some local companies in order to repair this, or if not possible, to make sure that it's being collected and dismantled, locally, or sent to other recyclers. I hope this answered your question, and my slides are gone, so maybe that's a good moment to also hand over for you for a question.
Thank you. You've partly responded to my question. I wanted to find out, right now we're discussing about how to handle the e-waste which is brought into our countries. So I was wondering what can be done from the exporter's end, and from the research that you are doing, do you have any recommendations, or can you have some impact to restrict these shipment of these e-waste in African and other developing countries? Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this question. I think I already answered it, partially. Maybe one other sort of reflection you may want to have. Some of these goods are exported from the largest ports in Europe: Antwerp, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Hamburg. These ports are shipping millions of containers. And only a small fraction of these containers are going to Africa, and a small fraction of that contains potentially second-hand goods. The inspection, looking at the environment, is typically understaffed, unfortunately, in these exporting countries. So there are maybe a handful of people in the Netherlands working on this to inspect. So they have a lack of capacity in order to inspect every single container. So I think also better registration. So if you are to export this, that you have at least some certificates, which can then be checked through an algorithm if it complies, yes or no, and that it has been audited by someone else earlier in the chain, would facilitate the screening and the work of these exporting countries. And yet, such provisions are not in place yet, and I think that may be the way to go in the next couple of years in the European Union, and would be also one of my advices for the European Commission. I think I only have 15 minutes left, but let's continue. I'm not sure if I will finish all the slides, but that's going to be good. It's important to also, if you know the numbers, to know your stakeholders. You know, typical stakeholders is the ministry, the municipalities who are collecting this, the manufacturers, which could be held responsible in an extended producer responsibility scheme, e-waste managers, which collect and which manage electronic waste, NGOs, the compliance schemes, I think we all know them, and all of them have to be consulted if you want to build a strategy, and all of them need to get a proper role and the proper mandate where they can actually contribute to. One example of this mapping and also to the mandate is something what we're doing in the regional e-waste monitors. So this is one example for the country of Moldova, if I'm not mistaken. And this is one mapping that has been done by others, by the way. In Rwanda, it's just to illustrate what kind of mapping you have which sort of mapping you want to do. And if you want to work in a country, you can use this as a starting point to build a list of stakeholders. And then if you know your stakeholders and your numbers, you can assess the impact. Like what we typically do, and this is something which we have recently starting with. We started in Central Asia. We are also now going to be doing this for the European Union. Is to understand how much e-waste is there. Right now we know how much are we predicting. Forecasting, of course, it always comes with an uncertainty. How much is going to be there in 2030 and in 2050? Because if you want to manage what's going to be there tomorrow, we also need to know how much there may be tomorrow. Which parts are hazardous? What are the valuable materials, and what's the impact for the economy overall? And this is built on the same principles as I've discussed before, and we have made a simple-to-use tool in Excel, so you don't have to be like a data fetishist as I am, as my team is. In order to do these calculations, you just have to change a few numbers, and the tool is calculating the things for you. And what you can do with this is the following. This is one example from Kazakhstan, which can be replicated to Tanzania, Rwanda, to any country. One of the findings is that the amount of e-waste in Kazakhstan is going to double from now up to 2050. So it's growing faster than the global average. With the tool, you can also make some future scenarios, how much e-waste you're going to collect and how much of e-waste will remain not collected. We worked with the government of Kazakhstan. They want to have a green economy. Everyone wants that. So they set a target that all e-waste in 2050 is going to be diverted, source separated, and sent to formalized recyclers. To date, they are at 8%, by the way. So this means if you would then make some extrapolation, that this would be the curve of how much e-waste is going to be managed in the formal system and how much e-waste is going to not be managed by the formal system is going to decline. That's a starting point. The tool can also calculate how many greenhouse gases are being avoided with this. If we would manage this type of e-waste directly, but also indirectly through the recovery of secondary raw materials. So it shows you the positive impact. So the more e-waste we manage, the green bars are indicating the amount of greenhouse gases we are avoiding to be emitted through better management of electronic waste. At the same time, you can also calculate for specific hazardous substances, such as mercury, which are also slowly being, phased out. So that's also one of the reasons why the amounts are going to decline. We will have less mercury in e-waste than we currently have today. But still, you need to make sure that you're managing that type of waste in the future too. A new asset that we have made of is to turn all of these numbers into one single unit. We are comparing apples with pears. Kilograms of e-waste, kilograms of mercury, kilograms of the greenhouse gas emissions, and also kilograms of recovered gold. Is it possible to turn them into one single unit? We try doing that with cost. So basically, with some monetary value. And basically, well, to date, we are in a situation that we are not managing our waste. So we are having a lot of red cost, which is basically social and environmental costs. If you're not collecting this e-waste, you just outsource your cost to someone else. If you start to manage this, the outsourcing of the cost is gonna decline to almost nothing. At the same time, you're also gonna recover more value. That's the blue bar. So the blue bar is indicating how much worth of copper, gold, and aluminum and iron you are recovering in the formal systems, and this will grow. So the more e-waste you manage, more value is retained within the country. But this also comes with another cost. E-waste also contains hazardous substances which have to be depolluted, and if you want to have some compliance system, it always comes with a cost, which is the blue bar here. However, these costs are much less than the outsourced costs to the environment, so it does definitely pay off to collect and to recycle e-waste in a proper manner for the environment. So you can also use these numbers to also convince stakeholders to set up such systems. I have 8 minutes left in my time, so I don't know if there's any questions right now before I... Yeah, then I'll just proceed. Oh, something's happening with my... Yeah, thanks a lot. Importantly is also I think if you want to boost collection and recycling, you need to have a legal framework in place. Our data shows that if you have a legal framework in place, which is this graph on the left-hand side here, that on average, so each is one country, and you can see the collection rate on this axis. That on average, you can collect 25% of your e-waste. And some countries, they have a very high collection rate, such as Switzerland or Bulgaria or some other countries, which have a long, history of this. And some countries, they have a legislation, but they are just starting, and they are still collecting less than 5%. However, if you have nothing in place, the average is close to 0%. It's very difficult to set up a system without having a proper legislation. What is important in this legislation, and this is maybe one example, is it's very important that you get some financial model in order to make this work. Without finances, it will not work. And one of these solutions could be the extended producer responsibility scheme, but there could be some other ways how this could be financed. And in view of time, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail how this works, because I think this has also been discussed yesterday by Matthias Schlup. Okay. And then if you have legislation in place, then the real work is starting. You have to source, separate electronic waste. In most of the countries, this can be done by formal and by informal, waste collectors. So it could be, if you live in Europe, it's happening in a shop, it's happening at the municipal collection points, and then typically, the e-waste is separated by its type. So so the mobile phones with the mobile phones, lamps with lamps, large equipment with large equipment, which allows the ease of the further processing of that type of waste. So once you have done that, then you can do that. In other parts of the world, there may not be such facilities, and then there's a lot of sectors like informal recyclers who are dismantling or repairing or trying to repair. If it can't be repaired, it may be sold for recycling. We talked a lot about that yesterday. I will not talk more about it, right now. But it's okay that some of them, they collect this waste, because collection is not where the damage is really happening. If you're gonna really, let's say, manage it into a secondary raw material or burn the cables, that's where the damage is, starting. So I think these, like informal collectors, they can still collect this type of waste if they hand it over to a formalized recycler, which would then, manually dismantle hazardous substances, such as the toner cartridge or the batteries, or any other parts which may be hazardous, which have to go to specialized treatment facilities. However, also, valuable components, such as the printed circuit boards, they could be, separated. That could also be done by the informal sector in the case of the printed circuit boards, for instance. Well, the hazardous fractions, I wouldn't recommend, them to be touching them. After that, it could go into a mechanical, treatment setup in which the iron is separated with a magnet, the eddy current separator for the non-ferrous metals, and then also some further screening for like plastics and residual materials could be done afterwards. This is just one example, and we could talk about this for hours, which I'm not going to be doing. There is one recycler in Rwanda where, but I think there's more of that in the African continent, which has set up, but well, this was the closest to here, so I chose this one, which has set up a place like that, and this is their flow, what they're happening. So they're having the similar type of flow. They have the collection of e-waste. It's then going to the to the facility where it's documented and weighted. It's segregated by its type into a storage space. Then they would see if it can be reused, yes or no. If yes, it will be sent to a reuse channel, because there's simply more value in reuse than in recycling. So if you want to make more value, always try to extend the lifespan and to reuse it. If it can't be reused, it's waste. Then please separate this, the hazardous fraction from the non-hazardous waste, and then further process this. I'm not going to go into further detail on this, but a few photographs from that facility shows that they are actually doing this in practice, and that the workers that are actually working on it, they wear gloves, and they also wear a specific protection from the dust which may be arising, which is hazardous for you. They make also unique well, not unique, but homogeneous fractions, which then can also be sent for further processing. All the emissions to air and the hazardous materials are being treated, so there is like some off-gas treatment happening, and these filters are being cleaned and safely landfilled. In view of time, I think let's do like these are very short, and then we can go to the final questions. It's important that there's also capacity being built in these countries. If you just have a legislation and some collection points, you will recycle more and collect more. But if you want to improve the situation, you also have to educate. We have a series of types of trainings, and I think there are many more out there that can also do that. I think also the program from Matthias Slup contributes to this, but also has their own way of how to do this. And I think all of these things are good. So I think like typically, students have to be trained, e-waste managers, the businesses that want to be engaged with this have to be trained. Also some alliances and also some networking is happening through these training. So it's not only like one type of training. These are some networks which are going to grow. It's a seed which is being planted, which will grow and which will improve the management of e-waste in the future. A more boring training is the one on the statistics. If you want to get your numbers right, it's very targeted for national statistical offices. For the sort of crime things too, we have for policemen, for custom workers in order to facilitate their work and to inspect them, how to distinguish second-hand from e-waste goods and to facilitate their work. Not only the ones who have a job have to be trained, but also the general public has to be made more aware. So awareness raising, and also build up systems that you're having like more collection. So maybe some week per year in which you all collect e-waste and have a campaign on the socials and television in order to boost collection. And what also does really work is a financial or a social reward. If you pay someone to hand over their e-waste, then you always get a higher refund rate. Even though the payment is very limited, people just want to get a little bit of money back. That's just how we are wired. I have no idea why, but that's the way it is. Yeah. And finally, most of the recycling facilities, what to date, are found in Europe, in Asia, and in America. So if you want to collect, to connect your business to a smelter, you still need to send your e-waste to them. So it is a reverse flow. And you have to comply with all, the Basel Convention and the things that are related to that. But I think we also should start thinking of, can we build in Africa more dismantling facilities, which are there, but also more end treatment facilities, because otherwise all the secondary raw materials are being exported out of Africa, ending up at the global smelters. And I think that's my final word for today. Happy to take any final questions from you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and it's fantastic work you're doing, and these reports are a fantastic source of information for me at least. I'm Stefan Böse O'Reilly. I work for World Bank on the health part of this. My question is, I'm coming from the European Union, and we have the Green Deal in the European Union and circular economy, meaning we get more and more electric cars, and these electric cars have batteries, and the batteries do contain some lithium. Compared to a mobile phone, a lot more lithium. I know that in the European Union we're struggling with recycling lithium batteries, and I'm wondering what this means, because for example our old electric car, I tried to sell it but nobody in Germany wanted it, so it's already going to Eastern Europe. So in a few years you will see these cars arriving just opposite of the hotel in these big boats coming into Africa. So one question is lithium recycling, and the other one is, I mean, looking at a modern car, I think I sit like, you see this screen here, this screen could be the screen of a Tesla. So I think in a car you sit in a computer, not in a car anymore. So why do you not consider cars as e-waste?
Thanks. Shall I take a few more questions and then answer them if there are, in view of time?
Yes, we should be able to take 2 more. Just 2 more.
Good morning, Mark Williamson from West Africa. So with regards to the training, I think training, especially you mentioned the 2 for kind of enforcers and for government officials. Is that something that's done within Africa, or do people have to travel to Europe to undergo that training? Because obviously that adds a substantial expense to it. Is it something that can be brought locally?
Final question?
Yeah, thank you for presentation. My name is Henry. I would like to know more the experience from manufacturer, if we have the best practices in other country, whereby they can extend the value of their products as far as the EPR is concerned. Thank you.
Over to you, Dr.
Thanks a lot. For me, it's also difficult to highlight one or the other, best, practice. I think there are many, best practices, and it may not have been the best choice to choose this one, or I could have spent, talking for hours. I think if you want to understand, more about this, I invite you to read the Global E-Waste Monitor. We have like a section with many best practices per country also being listed. And then if you find ones which we have missed, please reach out to us, because we want to do better, and we will write a next monitor in a couple of years' time, and we want to include that as well. About the training, some trainings we have in Europe, indeed, and then we bring in people from Africa or from other parts of the world, and their expenses are being covered through that program. They get to see the practices in Europe and exchange thoughts with peers from their country. We also do them in Africa. We have done trainings in many parts in Africa too. We will most likely have a series of those trainings in the southern part of Africa, so potentially in South Africa, and I think it would be nice to involve also you and others in that networks in that particular work too. But all of our work is, of course, subject. If there's funding for it, then we can make it happen. And typically, we have more ideas than funds, unfortunately. The first question is a bit more tricky. I am very much aware of the situation of lithium, and yes, lithium is also in the battery of a laptop or a mobile phone, but the car is the big thing. One type of solutions is a digital product passport. We need to know where are these batteries ending up. If it comes with a passport, we know the origin, how it has been manufactured, which facilitates the repair or the recovery of that battery. It may also allow you to track where the battery may be ending up through like a barcode, etc. This will help to preserve the metals embedded, such as the lithium. However, I'm not convinced that this is going to be the cure. There will definitely be a driving force of second-hand cars, and that these are at the ports here, and yeah, and I think but also potentially these product passports could help a solution to also find it better, and also to have the producers more responsible for also managing that type of waste. And I will end my session with those words.
Thank you very much, Dr. Keys. Well, then, a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.